To school season in full swing, COVID cases are spiking.
So what can you do to make sure your child stays safe and in the classroom? We're going to sit down with the Secretary of Education next.
We are back with an all too familiar fear plaguing millions of parents and students across the country as they head back to school, the threat of COVID.
The CDC says more than 30 states are seeing a spike in COVID cases, which is the biggest summer COVID wave we've seen in 2 years. Some experts worry it could keep kids out of the classroom once again. Education Secretary Miguel Cardona joins us now with more on this and many of the other issues impacting students and families as students head back to school. Secretary Cardona, good to have you with us this morning. Let's start with COVID and talk about the impacts of it. The government gave $190 billion in federal funding to help students recover from that pandemic learning loss that we saw. 2 research studies released over the summer revealed that investment did provide modest improvements in students' performance, but we're still not back to where we were back in 2019. So just how far behind are students right now? And in your mind, how do we get back to where we need to be?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. Really happy to be here. Really exciting time of the year. As a parent of 2 college-age students, this back to school time is really an exciting time across the country for our students to really re-engage. And you're absolutely right. We are making gains in terms of academic progress, and we're not at the levels from before the pandemic, which is why we are continuing to put our foot on the gas pedal, making sure that we're pushing for programming after school, academic enrichment, and making sure that we're giving our students the best opportunities to succeed. We are seeing good use of the American Rescue Plan dollars that President Biden put forward. But we have to keep moving forward. We're fighting for budgets for education for our schools that show that we are committed to making sure our students succeed. And, with regard to the most recent COVID information that you're sharing, look, we have to be precautious. We're going to keep our schools open. Our kids need to go back to school. Take the regular precautions you normally take if there's a spike in your area. CDC is updating their information. Full steam ahead for a great school year.
One of the other things that we saw spike during this, Secretary, was teacher burnout, of course. And we actually have some new numbers. A recent poll, this comes from the country's largest teacher union. It revealed that more than half of teachers, 55%, say they plan to leave the classroom sooner than they originally planned. I mean, that sounds like a big concern. That sounds like it leads to teacher shortages. What are you seeing? What are you hearing from teachers? And how do we tackle this?
It certainly does, and I think this is something that I'm glad you're bringing up, because I think across the country, we need to recognize how important it is to make sure that our schools have highly qualified teachers that are supported. I often talk about the ABCs of teaching, right? And providing agency, better working conditions, and competitive salaries to our educators. This is something that I feel, a teacher shortage to me is a symptom of a teacher respect issue. So let's continue to support our public schools. We are working really hard at the federal level. We've seen over 30 states increase teacher salaries over the last several years. We've been really pushing that. We've increased teacher apprenticeships, meaning you earn while you learn. The days of student teachers working for 4 months for free has to be in our rearview mirror. We're promoting internships and paid apprenticeships for our student teachers. And we're seeing an increase. We're seeing those data are starting to turn around. We've already increased and surpassed some of the drops that we've had due to the pandemic, but there's still ways to go in terms of making sure that every classroom has a highly qualified teacher. This is the best profession, so we have to do more across the country to really energize people to getting into this profession, but we also have to make sure we're paying competitively and supporting our educators when they're in the classroom.
Secretary Cardona, when we talk about burnout, one of the frustrations for some teachers is things like banned book lists and anti-LGBTQ plus policies passed by some state and local governments. In your mind, what's the impact of some of these policies? And at the federal level, is there a way for you to get around them?
Yeah, that's a great question. When I talk about better working conditions for educators, and this is our teachers, our paraprofessionals, our school principals, I'm also talking about the nonsense that's made its way into the classroom, the political division. I feel very, very firmly as a lifelong educator. I started off as a 4th grade teacher. I feel pretty strongly that this is all an attempt to destroy public education. We have a lot of state leaders that are pushing private vouchers to destroy public education. And while they try to destroy public education, I'm going to fight to defend it. Public education is the reason why I am Secretary of Education. It's given me the opportunity. It's opened doors for me as a first-generation college student. So whether, every year they choose a new boogeyman, whether it's the mask, transphobia, book banning, CRT. Look, parents know a strong relationship with their classroom teacher, a well-supported school is going to give their children the best opportunity to succeed. In the Biden-Harris administration, at the Department of Education, we're focusing on what parents really want. They want well-supported schools. They want mental health supports for their kids. They want academic acceleration, and they want to make sure their kids have an opportunity to succeed. And oh, by the way, they don't want to be paying college loans for the rest of their lives. That's what we're focusing on the Biden-Harris team.
Secretary, I know you are very passionate about student mental health. One of the times that we went out into a school together was a couple years ago when a youth risk behavior survey came out that was quite concerning, really high levels of hopelessness, things like that, with young people, especially young girls. In the most recent YRBS, we actually saw some improvements, which is good news. But when we were out, you had announced at the time a lot of money that you were funneling into schools to try to make differences on campuses. What impact have you seen? Have you seen a real change in the mental health of students where campuses have those types of resources? And what is coming for students this school year?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Look, as I said before, I'm a father and I'm an lifelong educator. And I know even before the pandemic, we weren't adequately addressing mental health needs of our students. We were taking what I called an emergency room model approach, meaning after the trauma happens, then we address it. So what we're seeing, and thanks to the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, about $2 billion has been pushed into our schools to support mental health, to create safety plans. We're seeing a continuum of services. And when we talk about good mental health support for students, it's not just having additional social workers in the school, which is critically important. It's also talking about having after-school programs for kids, having clubs like theater or athletics to get kids engaged. Schools are communities for our students. So what we're seeing across the country is more students have had access to after-school programming, to that sense of community that we know our students need, in addition to approximately 14,000 more mental health providers in our schools, thanks to the work of President Biden putting more dollars for mental health. So we are seeing an uptick. It's not a surprise to me. We need to continue to make sure that our schools are places where all students' needs can be met. And that includes their emotional and mental health needs. In order for students to be successful academically, they have to feel well. And we have to do a better job across the country changing the narrative to say that services can be provided in school.
Secretary Cardona, as always, it's wonderful to talk to you. Thank you very much for joining us this morning, and happy back to school season.
Thank you. Thank you.